I've dealt with distance quite a bit because I've traveled so much, and it seems as though I'll fall in love with someone and then go home and be 4,000 miles away from them. And so this one is all about love and distance. Dear Neil Armstrong, I write this to you as she sleeps down the hall. I need answers that I think only you might have. When you were a boy and space was simple science fiction, when flying was merely a daydream between periods of history and physics, when gifts of moon dust to the one you loved could only be wrapped in your imagination, before the world knew your name and before it was a destination, what was the moon like from your backyard? Your arm, strong, warm, wrapped across her shoulders, both of you gazing up from your back porch summers before your distant journey. But upon landing on the moon, as the earth rose over the sea of tranquility, did you look for her? I mean, what was it like to see our planet, know that everything you could be, all you could ever love and long for was just floating before you? Did you, by any chance, happen to write her name in the dirt when the cameras weren't looking, or surround both of your initials with a heart for alien life to study a million years from now? What is it like to love someone so distant? What words did you use to bring the moon back to her, and what did you promise in the moon's ear about the girl back home? Can you teach me how to fall from the sky? I ask you this not because I doubt your feet. I just want to know what it's like to go somewhere no man had ever been, just to find out she wasn't there. To realize your moonwalk could never compare to the steps that led to her. I now know that the flight home means more. And every July I think of you. I imagine the summer of 1969, how lonely she must have felt while you were gone. You never went back to the moon. And I believe that's because it doesn't take rockets to get you where you belong. I see that in this woman down the hall, and sometimes she seems so much further, but I'm ready for whatever steps I must take to get to her. I've seen so many skies, and the moon always looks the same. So I gotta say, Neil, that rock you landed on ain't got shit on the rock she's landed on. You walked around, took samples, and left, but she's built a fire, cleaned up the place, and I hope she decides to stay, because on this rock, we can both breathe. Mr. Armstrong, I don't have much. Many times have I been upside downtrodden, but with these empty hands comes a heart that is full more often than the moon. She's becoming my world, pulling me into orbit, and I now know I may never find life outside of hers, so I want to give her everything that I don't have yet. So yes, for her, I would go to the moon and back, but not without her. I mean, why? When we could claim the moon for each other with flags made from sheets down the hall, and I'd risk it all to kiss her under the light of earth, the brightness of home, but I can do all of that and more right here wherever she is. And when we gaze up with her arms around me, I will not promise her gifts of moon dust or flights of fancy. Instead, I will gladly give her all the earth she wants in return for all the earth she is, the sound of her heartbeat and laughter, and all the time it takes to learn to fall from the sky, down the hall, and right into love. Man, I'll do it every day if I can just land next to her. 5, 4, 3, 2, one small step for a man, but she's one giant leap for my kind. Thank you. Thank you, Calgary. I remember one time I was on my way to Calgary for the first time years ago, and I think it might have been for the Calgary Folk Festival, and I remember a guy saying, "Oh, heading to Calgary," and I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Wait," and for the rest of my trip, I was like, "Have I been pronouncing it wrong the whole time?" I was like, "Calgary, like that just sounds wrong," you know? He's like, "No, let's go to New York and get a subway." I was like, "Oh, okay, you're just fucked up. All right, I get it." All right. So hanging out at a bar one night, and I was just, you know those lonely moments where you kind of like you're sitting at a bar by yourself for a reason, you know, because you're lonely, and you got napkins and pen and like maybe some ginger ale or whatever, and you're writing your bullshit feelings down, you know, and that's me. Writing down some feelings, and this woman comes in, and the bar is empty, and I'm sitting right by the front door, just, in case the place sets on fire. It just seems like a good idea, right? And especially in an empty bar. And so I'm just minding my own business, and this woman comes, she sits right next to me, about my age, and she starts chatting me up, and I'm just like, God, like, why are you bothering me? Can't you see I'm lonely? Like, I'm alone here for a reason, And she's chatting me up, and she's trying to get me to engage, and I'm not engaging. I'm being a tool. And finally, she gets up to leave after she finishes her drink, and I'm like, wait, where are you going? She's like, well, might as well go home and feed my cat. And I'm like, your cat's fine. It'll survive a night without you. She says, oh no, he cannot be alone overnight. I tell her I feel the exact same way all the time. And I actually have something to offer the world. She says that her cat's special. It sounds like he says Reno when he meows. Reno? Really? So I imagine a cat saying Reno. 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 Reno, Nevada. All the time? As in every time it meows, it sounds like Reno? No, only every once in a while, like when he's really craving attention or needs to be brushed. Oh, I say. Oh. I tell her that when I'm craving attention, I remove my shirt, exposing my Katharine Hepburn-shaped birthmark, and I make it talk. Hello, everybody. Got any more tequila? I think it's from a movie. I don't remember. Look, lady, by now you must realize I am human and I have needs and I can love you. I actually love you. And I'm not trying to jump the gun here. I know we just met, but I am capable of real human love, not your programmed feline, you're the keeper of the food, so I guess I'll stick around bullshit. Does your cat have the ability to make an entire room laugh without it having anything to do with its own failure? Can your cat use a QWERTY keyboard? Can your cat edit even a modicum of HTML? Can your cat Photoshop in images of you to look like you have a handlebar mustache? I don't think so. I can do half of those things while I have soup cook on the stove. See these thumbs? Do you? Do you? Because these mean I win. You're right, she said coyly, and we boned right there at Taco Bell. 9 months later, we had 8 kittens. They run my website now. Thank you. All right. Whew, all right. Got the silliness out of the way. The next 2 poems I'm reading for you, the last 2 poems I'm reading for you, are in this chat book right here that I just made today for you guys. Go buy one. They are $5, and it's called Everything's Looking Up. There are 2 bars I frequent in Bellingham, Washington. That's where I'm currently living right now. And they share a wall. Makes choosing easy. One's a wine bar with candles on the tables and music playing from an iPad. The other does local beer and grilled cheese. And as long as it's not soul night, they'll let you throw your peanut shells on the floor. I often visit both in one night. It's less the clientele and more that both establishments have beautiful women in charge of all those bottles. But unrequited love for a bartender always leads to drinking alone in front of them, and you still tip if you're a good person, because they got kids to feed. Liquor has always been a second-place ribbon for me, a parting gift as I walk in the door. I'm generally runner-up to whoever joins me at the bar first. But tonight, I came with 2 friends. They usually hide out in the winter. They're outside smoking and aren't allowed in most bars anymore. That's what happens when you're hot near alcohol. They don't as much drink as they consume. They don't sit as much as they shine. As I pay my tab, they hover around the door waiting to take me home. I exit, I stumble, and I spin, catching myself in the gaze of my 2 friends. I look up at them and follow. My eyes drift as I walk. Ahead of me, I have a 1.5-mile hike uphill to my house. Most of the time, I remember my way home sometimes. Tonight's sky is perfect. Someone graffitied lit charcoal across the aftermath of a squid fight. It's the top left corner of a U.S. flag on the highest definition. I'll dream of bartenders and constellations once I land soft horizontal, but this hike has me singing out loud to my iPod. Hey, little girl, is your daddy home, or did he go and leave you all alone? I got a bad desire, but it is and will remain a pipe dream. It's my 2 friends who are on fire, making sure I get home tonight. Cassiopeia and Orion are on alert. Heroes feel a certain sense of dedication to those lives they've saved. Or maybe they're just big balls of burning gases, pretty to look at from a distance. It's all we ever seem to do with each other. We watch them, they burn. We watch and watch, they burn. Each star in a constellation has no clue it's being grouped with other stars. Were I to fall over and pass out on my way home, the beauty of Bellingham is that I would simply land on the beauty of Bellingham. I would likely be awakened by the nuzzling of a deer. I would wake up and say, "Oh dear." Then the deer would click and snort, and that would notify other local deer that my scent wasn't danger, but just another hairy dude who's never actually cut down a tree. And this deer would look to my friends ahead of us and say, in a British dialect, "This one shall pass, but he's not to touch anything along the way." I would rise and buckle like a newborn fawn and continue on my way home. I would be the cowardly lion, only by cowardly I mean drunkenly, and by lion I mean fat little man. I will get home and wish I weren't alone. Then I will make a snack that I would never eat in the afternoon or in public and fall asleep with the grace of a drunken lion. As I dream, Cassiopeia and Orion will dance away into the sunlight, never knowing why or just how much I look up to them. Thank you. So, to clarify, this next piece I'm going to do for you guys requires a bit of tunage, and that is all right on my computer here. Bear with me. This piece is, it's a story, a true story, really. And this piece of music is very lovely. This is Sigur Rós, track 3 off of their Parentheses album. I love you, Calgary, and I love you, Sherry D, and I love everyone in here, and I owe Angela, I owe you my life to a certain degree, or at least my belly, and thank you to everyone here, and all the poets and writers and authors are amazing, and I love you, Canada. Thanks. This is a story of us. Several billion years ago or more, you began as an inert microscopic particle floating deep in space. Were any creatures aware of your existence, they might have named you something wonderful, but they didn't, because as we now know, eyes require a complexity too large to see the tiny spark and shine you had. Eyes didn't exist yet in that part of the universe. You had no purpose to be seen. After a long hibernation that included the universe forming before and around you, a very large nearby sun died, 1 septillion octillions of times larger than you, expelling all of its energy, pushing you, spinning you away, along with newer, smaller particles that spun around you. You, now a wayward atom with a purpose you didn't ask for, because as we now know, the act of asking requires lips and teeth and things. Shot from deep space nearer the center of the universe, and after an extremely long, quiet, and relatively unencumbered flight, you landed on Earth's new moon, basking for the next very long ever. Sitting there for some time, perpetually energized by the strong rays of the Earth's further sun, a new sun, warming the even newer planet, terraforming itself in silence thanks to the space between you. You waited for nothing and no one. Your particles radiated longer than any particles have any right to do. You waited, and the moon took its time, inching closer to an Earth growing bluer and bluer as millennia slipped by, and you waited. Suddenly, I came into being as a gas particle from Earth's sun. That angry star banished sextillions of us for no reason, because as we now know, reason requires brains and love and shoulders. It is possible, but unlikely, that I sensed your tiny spark and shine on my 93 million mile flight. This would explain the slightest turn in my trajectory. I landed next to you, and we sat on that lunar surface through so much time that we might have become inseparable. Our bond was inexplicable, because as we now know, explanation requires a need to understand, and understanding is sometimes a physical thing that just is. Just when we were settled, a large ball of fiery power blasted closely past us and our quiet home. Its tail as long as 100 of our moons. Its anger dragged us with it, and we flew right for the blue ball in front of us. Just before colliding with it, the fiery ball was consumed by molecules we'd never met before, bigger than us but friendly. They called themselves wind and welcomed us as they ate the fire rock. They told us to settle in the coolness of what they called water. We landed in the big water and floated for some time. We enjoyed it when the wind would carry the water up high and then splash it back down on us. We were one since before we left the moon, and we enjoyed this more interesting place together. Millions of years went by. The weather changed billions of times. The wind took care of us, and the water helped us navigate. Creatures got smaller, and we honored them by adhering to other parts of them for their entire lives. We lived in the eye of a large beast. We were the most important part of thousands of insects. We were the least important parts of dinosaurs. We were the messengers for 10 different hair follicles. We were the tiniest part of a bird's heart. We could feel it soaring from within. That always made you laugh. That was our favorite job. We made friends and worked so closely with so many like us and even more unlike us. We lived through so many cycles of creatures and plants. We lived as teammates in thousands of trees their entire lives. Lastly, we became part of a flower that got eaten by something, then digested, and eventually we got smelled and stepped on by a large dog. Its kind, frustrated masters called it Shinjo and yelled its name angrily as it footprinted us into their small dwelling, where we were cleaned up and thrown into the garden. We'd been bonded for so long that we never knew separation was possible until that morning when the garden flashed brighter than an angry sun and everything around us was split apart, including you and I. I don't know where you went, but I returned to the water and searched for you best I could at my size. Decades went by, and I must have been drank by a two-footed master. The same must have happened to you. We grew to become two very different upright mammals. I lived in this man's voice box. You lived in your woman's heart. Mine loved art and the universe, as did yours, because we were in them and part of them in such a simple way. Because as we now know, the universe isn't just out there. It's also in here, in us. My body traveled north to speak about things such as this in simple, loving ways. Your body sensed all of what is in you might be in mine too. Mine knocked on the door. Yours answered. And I finally recognized that tiny spark and shine. Thank you, Calgary. I love you all very much. Come get a hug or a high five.